This is the last day of live reviews. I already recorded the video for the, when you come back on Tuesday, remember next week you don't have school Monday. Tuesday, that's kind of like a normal-ish day. You go to all your classes, you have, an hour to review. So I made a review video for that. But a lot of you are going to miss that because a lot of you are going to be retaking our last test. But remember, the video is a video that you can watch at night and therefore use to study for the final. So if you're taking the retake in class, you already signed up for that. If you're like, what are you talking about? I will sign you up. You just have to ask me if you want to retake our last test. And then you'd have one when the sub starts class on Tuesday and says, okay, who's taking the final? Here's your tests, and he has the names on them. Hands them out to everybody. All right, so, but the other video, you could then watch at night. All right, so if I was going to solve this, don't overthink this. There's x's on both sides. Your first step then is to get rid of the smaller one. It really does matter. It saves you a whole step, which is a lot. It could be like 25% faster if you do it this way. I'm going to get rid of the smaller one, which is that one, plus 3x. I know some of you subtracted x. Well, you're just doing it the slow way because you'll have a negative on your x and I won't. If you get rid of the smaller one, your x that you have at the end won't be negative, which will save you a step later. Those cancel, and it's 4x plus 5 equals negative 7. And now, if you can't solve a two-step equation, I give up. You got to be able to do that by now. And then divide by 4 and divide by 4. I'm not saying you couldn't make a mistake, but at least you know what you should do. And you get negative 3. Who had negative 3 for your answer? Nice work. That's good, just plain old-fashioned algebra. So today is just about solving things. This one, a lot of people would think that you should add 10 first, and you wouldn't be wrong, but the smarter thing to do is clear the fractions. Let me teach you this. If I'm the first person to teach this to you, you can thank me later. It'll save you so much time because you have to eventually deal with this fraction, and they're not fun. All you got to do is multiply by the denominator all the way through. You go times this one by 2, times this one by 2, and times this one by 2. The reason is because then this cancels and you don't have a fraction anymore. And 2 times 10 is 20, and 11 times 2 is 22. Do you agree that that's infinitely easier? No fractions. That's how you clear that fraction out. Multiply by the denominator. And if you don't get why it's on everything, if I said 2 plus 4 is 6, I know you'd agree. If I multiply this by 4, now let's make it smaller. Multiply this by 2. And multiply this by 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 plus 4 doesn't equal 12, does it? You got to multiply them all by 2. And then this would be 4 and 8, and that does make 12. See, you got to multiply everything by 2. All right, so moral of the story, this will save you suffering on the test because you can turn your fraction problem into not having fractions. You just multiply by the denominator on all 3 parts. Okay. Then I just have to add 20. And I get negative 3x equals 42. Divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. Cancels. And I know 3 goes into 42, but I don't have it fresh in my mind. You know you'd have a calculator, right? Could somebody divide 42 by 3 for me and tell me what you get? Anybody verify 14? Let's double check it. Yep. Okay. Answer is negative 14 then. All right. So notice that was weird. I know most of you wouldn't have known that. Multiply by the denominator. There's another way. You have to multiply by 2 over 3. And multiplying by 2/3 is way harder. That's why I say just multiply by 2 at the beginning. Get rid of your fractions. All right. If you can't solve for y by now, oh my gosh. You've got to be able to solve for y. It's huge. You got to do that to be able to graph. So I'm scribbling out this y so you don't like by accident write it down. You're just solving for y. Start by subtracting x. If you were stuck, just subtract x. And then from there, it's not too bad. Nugent, can you tell me, after these cancel, what do I have? Nope, because x, or 8 minus x is not negative 7.
Oh, yeah.
If x was 1, then it would be 7, but it's not. It's x. It's x. Negative x plus 8. You can't put x's and 8's together. And you can't just make up a number like, I'm going to decide that x is 1. Nope, can't do that. Glad we talked. This is on the final. Do you get that these two are not like terms? One's a number, one's a variable. Can't add them together. Okay, now to get the 2 alone, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. Just like we had to times everything by 2, in this case, we have to divide everything by 2. And I'd be okay with the answer that's written there. Or some of you, Daniel's at a cell phone. Oh, good. Okay, some of you would write that, and it's totally fine. And 8 divided by 2 is definitely 4. I want you to know this, but it's not required. Think about it. Every time there's a variable, you know you could put a 1 in front of it, right? See how it's really 1/2 x? All right. These are big moments for some of you. You're maybe just now realizing how that works. Everybody ought to be able to do this, but I'm a little afraid you'd start by subtracting 3 and then don't get to distribute that. You can do that one later. All right. These, you might think it's completely different. Nope. It's just exactly like solving an equation. The only time it's ever different is if you divide or multiply by a negative. Then that sign, which is right now a less than, would have to switch. On this problem, am I going to multiply or divide by a negative? No. So it acts just like an equation. Please do it with me. I'm on 5. 2x is less than 6. I'm close. Zane. All right, Mr. Kist. Mr. Kist. I need to see what's in your hand. Okay, good. Dang, I thought for sure that was a soft one. Yay. I'm so glad it's not. Okay, dividing by 2. And Zane, is this the kind where I switch the sign around or not? No, because I didn't divide by a negative. It's just x is less than 6. If you forgot what that looks like, you just pick a spot and you say, I'm going to say that's 6. And you go like this. And put an arrow, because that's showing less than 6. Yes? Oh my gosh. Yes, very good. Nice job, Sadie. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I can pick a spot and call it 3. Thank you. I got distracted because I thought I had somebody cheating on a test, which is a nightmare. Okay. If you get confused on which sign this is, I get it. A lot of people do. My daughter couldn't tell her left from her right forever. Okay, so that kind of thing can be confusing. You got to ask yourself, it looks like an L. If it looks like an L, it's a less than. That kind of looks like an L. If you compare them side by side, it looks a lot more like an L than the other one. So that's a less than. The other one is not a less than. So it must be a greater than. Okay. All right. I bet you $1 that there's going to be one where we have to switch the sign, because that's a big deal with these. Look at number 6. You'd start by, some people think multiplying it out. Nope, it's slower. It's not illegal. This is legal, but I think there's a faster way you'll like. Divide both sides by -2. Do you get that cancels out the -2? And then all you're going to have to do at the end is get rid of the 7. Now, I know some of you really want to distribute it. Go ahead. You're going to get the same answer. But do you get that I wanted to get rid of that -2, so I divided by -2? All right. So then I got x plus 7 is greater or equal. Wrong. I divided by a negative. Sign switches from greater than to less than. And then you just subtract 7 and you're done. Remember, it's multiplying or dividing by a negative, not like subtracting something. If you multiply or divide by a negative, the sign has to switch like I just did. And this would be -18. And if you didn't know, you could use a calculator in this class. All right. I'm going to cross off number 7. Pretty sure we're not going to do anything like that. And this is asking you to do 2 separate problems and then just put them both on the same number line. So maybe one of your answers goes like this and one of your answers goes like that or something. One last thing, when would you ever fill in the dot if it says equal to? If they say equal to, you fill in the dot. If they don't say equal to, you leave them empty. So like here on this one, that's a filled in dot because it said equal to. So if I pick this to be my -18 spot, you fill in the dot because it says or equal to. And that's less than, so I'm going to shade that way. Put an arrow on the end of it. Okay, all right. All good stuff to know. Some of the easier things that are on the final, but we haven't talked about them in so long. I hope this is helping. If you haven't learned that this splits it into 2, my gosh, we've done that so many times. Caden, what are the 2 equations for this? Nope, start with 16, and then, yep. It's actually not illegal to start with -16. It's just normally you copy exactly what you see right here. And then this is the one that gets the negative. From there, you're just going to add 5 on both sides. And x equals 21. Add 5, and x equals negative. Brains hurt. No, they're both negatives, aren't they? No, wait, it's a plus. It's a plus. My bad. -11 is correct. Yeah, there you go. Sorry about that. Do I split it into 2? Not yet. Nugent, what do you think we do first before we split it into 2 equations? You are correct. Good enough on that one. All right, solving systems. 3 ways. You could graph it, pain in the butt. Probably won't even do it on the test because they're such a pain in the butt. If you did have to graph it, you'd have to solve this for y, solve that for y. It takes so long, and then you graph them, and then finally they cross. So I doubt you'll even do it. What I know you'll do on the test is the elimination method. Draw a line under it with me. I'll remind you how to use elimination. You just combine them straight down. Do you get -3x and 3x will cancel each other? They eliminated. Now, 6y minus 4y is 2y. And -19 and 33. Oh, man, I'm having a rough day today. Can you tell me what that is? Somebody with a calculator. Thank you. Double checking it. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, cool. And then divide by 2, and I'm done. Can you put that on my keyboard, please, so I don't possibly miss it? Thank you. That's called elimination, boys and girls. You've got to be able to do that. We'll give you 1 softball, probably, where you could just add them straight down. Do you get I just added those and added those and added those? All right, why am I not done, though? Y equals 7 is not the final answer.
You got x.
Yeah, you got to go find the x.
And Anthony needs to be a point.
Yep. So my y equals 7 is a good start. But now I got to go put it into one of them. The top one has so many negatives, I'm going to not do that one. I'm going to put the y as 7 here. And again, super easy equation to solve. So you take your answer and you stick it back in. All right. This one, I totally get some kids would be really lost. It's just because they're not lined up over each other. Everybody subtract 3x from both sides. And then do you see that now you have the y underneath the y, and the x's can be underneath the x's, and the numbers can be underneath the numbers? Y equals 2x plus 4, and I'm just going to line it up real nice. Y equals negative 3x plus 9. Now, super easy. Add them straight down. Oh, wait. Y plus y is going to give me 2y. Okay, so it wasn't super easy, but I solved for y, which you've got to be able to do. If I could only pick 10 things you have to do for the final, you probably have to solve for y like 3 times. At least. Maybe more. Got to be able to do this kind where you solve and get y alone. Okay? It started again as 3x plus y equaled 9, and you had to solve for y. That's a big deal. You just had to subtract 3x. That was it. But then you have to know that x and 9 can't go together. So solving for y is huge. Okay, back to this. I know some of you are going to realize that y and y don't cancel. So for the kids that want A's or B's on this test, you'd have to be able to go, okay, to make it so they will cancel, I'm going to put a negative on everything. You can do that. It's like multiplying everything by -1. And now they'll cancel. It still freaks people out. They're like, what? There's nothing there. 0. 0 is a number. It's fine. Okay, plus 2 is 5x. And that makes -5. And from there, you add 5 divided by 5. It's x equals 1. No big deal. Okay, so there was 2 steps here. Solving for y, which I've said is huge. Got to be able to do that. Lining them up like this and making the bottom opposite on every sign. From there, if you can't solve that, you weren't going to pass the final anyways. Okay. Just to clarify, final answer. And x equals 1. Okay.
I have a small question.
Yes.
Is number 15 like no answer?
There is such a thing as no answers. Let's check. We agree that these cancel?
Yep.
Makes 0. You agree these cancel?
Yep.
Makes 0. Replace plus or minus 0 and it won't matter, right? Add these straight down and you get,
11.
is 0 really equal to 11?
No.
Then you were wise to say no answers. Do you get if the answer had come out like 11 equals 11? Then you would say everything works. It's the opposite of nothing
So
works.
infinite?
Yeah. If it had been this, it would have been infinite solutions. Or all right, but it came out. You were correct. This number 15 comes out no solution. All right. Now, word problems. I will show you how to set this one up. Most of you got this right on the test. I would agree that this is one of those where if you've been getting B's and C's and D's in the class, you might not get this one. My A students, you need this one. Starts with 105, 105. Saves 5 per week. He's going to add to it because he's saving money. $5 for each week. I could have said W. I could have said any letter. I chose X. Do you get so far? He had 105. He's adding 5, and they didn't say how many weeks. So I just put X. All that makes sense so far? Okay, next is, that was Henry. Now I got George. And he starts with 5. And he saves 15 per week. Could you have written those equations? I don't think they're that bad. But here's the nasty part at the end. What do you do with them? It's not that incredibly hard, but that's what would get a lot of kids. A lot of kids could write those equations. Okay, but here's what you got to do. They have the same amount of money. So that means that they're equal to each other. Oh, wait. See, I made this be equal to the other one. That's the master stroke you have to pull out, like using problem solving and go, I want this guy to equal that guy. From there, it's just solving the equation. Super easy. Could you have written the equation? I think most of you could. Could you figured out that you want them to be the same and then that means equal? I think you could have. It'd be hard though. All right, we need to save some time at the end for other things, so I'm not going to try to do every problem here. All right, quadratic equation. We don't give it to you, so please, everybody, right this second, please write it down, because it will be given on the test. X equals negative b, plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. Now, do I want you to know how to do this? Yes. Yes. Quadratic formula will be on the final at least, I would think 3 times, at least. But even more, I'd like you to know that you can solve quadratics with something way easier. Factoring. Look at this. If you can factor it, now if you didn't know 11 times 11 is 121, that would have been pretty hard. But do you got the answers already? Would you rather do a 16-part formula, or would you rather just factor it? And then say x plus 11 is 0 and x minus 11 is 0. And solve the 2 easiest equations of your life. Okay, moral of the story, quadratic equation works for every quadratic. But ones like this, way faster if you can factor it. And ones like this, way faster if you know this way. Square root, absolute value. We just had this on the last test. What just happened there? I just divided by -2. Now, you might rather do the quadratic formula. Maybe you want to multiply it all the way out and use the quadratic formula. It would have worked. But I'll show you how you'd end it. You just had this on your last test. I know, that's a hard one. Some people it's too hard. But back to this, could you have just multiplied this thing all the way out and then set it equal to 0 and then used the 16-part formula? Yeah, maybe you like that better. But I'm telling you, I wouldn't. You'd have to do this times this to do the squared part. And once you're done with that, you'd have to multiply everything by -2. And then to set it equal to 0, you'd have to add 12 to both sides. That's going to be a pain in the butt. But then I'd have a quadratic that's equal to 0. It would work. But I like this way. Okay. We've done a ton of hard ones. Let's talk an easy one. Take a second right now. Everybody try number 23. This should be a nice, easy. Oh, I got 2 answers. One's a fraction, one's a whole number. Easy peasy. When you're done, look up. All right. So there's going to be this weird dichotomy in here, and I hope to be explained what I mean in a second. Some of you, when I suggest, I think next year you'd be best off in FST, which is the easier math class. Some of you are going to be like, how dare you not think that I'm ready for pre-calc? But yet, you didn't remember a lot of these things. You didn't know how to do them. Okay, if you didn't know how to do these things, they expect you to know how to do all of these things, all of them, when you go to pre-calc. Like, you got to be really good at algebra to do pre-calc. And if this is like, man, this stuff is really hard, you don't want to take pre-calc. It's just going to kick your butt. So it might feel insulting today when I give you this sheet and it says, I think you should take FST. Not everybody, but a lot of you. Because if this is like hard for you, oh my gosh, pre-calc has got 16 steps. This was like 2. Set up the equations and solve the little mini equations. If that's hard, holy crap, you do not want to be in pre-calc. All right, so I'm going to give my recommendation. And the other thing I want to make sure you understand is that if I'm like really flipping a coin between two things, and like, I can't tell. Maybe the kids should take pre-calc. Maybe the kids should take FST. I can't tell if they're really trying or not. But can I expect the kid to all of a sudden start trying next year? I can't expect that. I don't know. So I'm going to err on the side of the safer call, which is usually going to be the lower class, because I know you'd be okay in there. So don't feel insulted if you don't get asked to take pre-calc for next year. If you decide, no, I am going to turn it on next year. I have realized that I need this class to be able to get into that good college I want to go to, so I'm taking pre-calc. Fine, you can take it. When I'm giving you this suggestion for what class you should take next year, just don't be offended. I'm trying to put you in a place that won't hurt, that would be doable. And then if you decide to overachieve next year, I can't know that. All right, so we've done enough practice. This one would factor, by the way, and if you can factor it, you should. And I'm going to leave it to you now. When I'm gone next week, you'll have a review video on the first day, and also a ton of you will take that retake. If you're not watching the video because you're taking a retake, watch the video at night. It'll still be there. Okay? And then when you come to class, take the test. Just know I'll be rooting for you. It's so much easier for me and you if you get a good grade. I'll be cheering for you. All right. That's all I got for you for the video for today.